Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. I'm your boy, Carl E. Long, and this is my podcast, and welcome back to the podcast. Guys, America, there is so much that's happened this week. I can't keep up. I'm trying to keep up. So it's important that I give you as much information that I can. I am trying to give you the most pertinent information that I can to let you know that I'm giving you the truth, and it is all documented research. And if I make a mistake, I will come back and make clarity. All right. So if you're on this channel, you're going to get the truth. You're going to get what's going on in the world, and you're going to get some of my own opinion, of course, because I am an American and I have thoughts on everything. So today's episode is Trump Watch. MAGA world is out of control. Americans not pleased. Yes, that is the subject of today's podcast. Guys, things are moving so quickly and so out of control that people are starting to see what is going on. Now, as I started this podcast, the one thing that you know about a podcast and if it is going to be effective is that when you do anything about politics, that if you get MAGA start to troll you, then you know you're doing something right, because they troll shows like The View. They hate The View because the girls on there, they fact check. They are very liberal, but they call out people when they call out both sides. They call out both sides. They have always done that. But they troll shows like that. And if it's anything that is anti-Donald Trump, they're right on it. So they found me. They have definitely found me. And my comments have been pretty lively, you know. But the way I've been approaching it is I'm not going to come back and slap back with a MAGA person with a regular old, negative comment to them, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I try to engage in conversation and try to find out where their sources are. A lot of them don't have any sources. They just spew off stuff. In the world of AI and chat GBT, everything is at your fingertip. You can find the answer to something really quick. And people say you shouldn't trust chat GBT and AI and things like that. Sometimes they get things wrong, but 99.9% of the time they do not. And the thing about chat GBT is it gives you the sources. If you search for something there, it's going to say, here are the sources that I found. Then you can look at the sources and see if they're wrong. So if they get it wrong, then it was probably wrong somewhere else, but it's a reliable source, and these people don't know how to do it. I'm not calling them illiterate. I'm just calling them, they don't want to do it. You remember those 4 types of Trump supporters that I told you about? There are 4 types. You have there's this one group that's just totally ignorant of everything because they don't research anything, and they pretty much believe anything you tell them. And that's the group that is the most hard to convert or to tell them anything about the truth, because they don't care. They will go silent. So I want to share with you a few of the colorful comments that I got on some of the podcasts that I've done, particularly on the Department of Education dismantling that, in DEI. That's a bad word in MAGA world. DEI is a bad word. So here is the comment I got from a dear brother on DEI definition. So this is what he told me. He says, DEI doesn't say, hey, let's look at these people. It says, ye shall hire these people. And of course, it's forcing people. What the hell do you think it's doing? Suggesting it? Nope. I made my business, not the government. I'll decide who to hire. And you can still do that. There is nothing that is telling you that you have to hire a DEI person. DEI are just agencies, and they were giving people alternatives to say, businesses, if you want to have a DEI program, you can't. There was no government mandate of any sort. So stuff like this, so he was challenging me, dear Mike Minaric, on what DEI actually. I said, you don't even know what it means. Can y'all at least learn the definition of what it means? Affirmative action is gone. So DEI was just an alternative way to give you a pool of candidates who already have been vetted. All right. They already have been vetted. There's nobody in these pools that has not been vetted. It's just, here's the pool. If you want to try one of these people of color, a woman, or another minority of some sort, then here's some people to just consider. That's all that they're saying. Because the way that people hire, and everybody knows this, you can't even get in a job unless you know somebody, right? And people tend to hire who they know or who they look like. And that's just the fact of nature. And one of the Republican pundits was saying that. He said it before he knew it. He was like, you just said that people will hire what they hire. So DEI was just giving people a chance, equal chance. Nobody's trying to take over. I don't understand why they don't get that, but it's a bad word. So it's been banned in the federal government. So any program that was there, it was banned. So any person of color, they're coming out and saying that's probably a DEI hire. Why? Are we not qualified just because we're people? You know what I mean? So that's gotten out of hand, but you can't get through to them because they will not research anything. So I tried to engage to see what he would answer, and this is what he came back with. So I kind of left that one alone. The next one here, this one was colorful as well. We were talking about, I said in one of my things that Joe Biden is my boy. Y'all, I was talking about how people discounted him, but Joe was doing things. He was packing those courts with judges. He was taking care of stuff before he left. He did a lot of work for us guys. And so I said he was my boy. And dear Bob Patterson replied, at Carl Edward Long, it's not what he did to me, but it's what he did to our country. I asked him, what did Joe Biden do to him? He said, if you can't see his attempt to destroy America and form a global world, you need help. Joe Biden was trying to form a global world. Have you looked at your person these days who's in bed with Putin, calling dictators and all sorts of things, trying to take over countries? Who's trying to form a global world? He's trying to take over Canada. He's trying to take over Greenland. He's renaming. And he said, this is Joe Biden. This is what he said. He said that. So I was like, where do they get this stuff? I don't know. That's why Kamala didn't win. It was so much misinformation out there. It was ridiculous. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, to give you truth. Okay. So here is another one. A dear guy said, dear Bob Patterson said, this is what he said initially. If Biden is your man, then I have zero respect for you. He had zero respect for me because Biden is my man. So that was his response. And I asked him, what did Biden do to him? And that's what he said. All right. So then this other guy who really came at me, I have a lot of them on TikTok and things like that, but I only pulled a few here. These are from my YouTube channel. It's Dear John Folks 3160 commented, understand the message, but God damn, this, you can tell this dude loves the sound of his own voice. Okay, so he don't like my voice. I'm sorry. I may have an annoying voice, and I'm sorry if it's annoying, but I don't like the sound of my voice. I never like the sound of my voice because I sound like my baby brother. I said, I sound like my brother. I never liked the sound of my voice, but glad you understood the message though. But, I'm sorry that my voice annoyed you, but people can just say anything in the comments, but I let them roll over my head, and I try to engage in real conversation. Try not to do the negative stuff unless they get totally nasty and they start to do things that are just inappropriate. Then I'll just block them, and that's all that you can do. But MAGA, they will find you if you are a liberal of any sort. Okay. All right. So here's another one that I got here. And he told me, don't believe everything you read on the internet. All right. And I don't. So I tried to engage with him, and I said, well, tell me what your facts were. It was something on the USAID agency, and I was giving him the facts. I actually found the facts of what the agency did. And so, and what they did with the countries and things like that. So he came back and said, don't believe everything you read on the internet. All right. I don't, dear Russ Jones, 1561. I know how to fact check and find reliable sources, not on Facebook with some crazy media company that you've never heard of. Reputable companies will not do this because I have journalist friends. I've worked in a newspaper for many years, 36 years. I worked in a newspaper. I wasn't a journalist, but I was in a newspaper. I was around it, and I know how my journalist friends work. They have to fact check. They have to have sources. They don't have to always reveal them, but they have to have sources. So I tell you, dear Russ Jones, don't you believe everything you read on the internet. Okay, buddy? There you go. So what has been in the news the most is all of the government personnel that is being let go. It's massive, guys. It's massive. And the sad part about it, what they're laying off in people and salaries is not going to go anywhere near the trillions of dollars in debt that he thinks he's going to get rid of. If you want to start with the debt, go to the Department of Defense. Start there. They haven't passed an audit in what did they say, 5 years? They've not passed an audit. Go to the Department of Defense and see what's going on over there. All right. They're kind of doing it, but they're doing it very quietly, and they haven't really cut much except personnel. They got rid of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's a black guy. He's been doing a great job. What did he do? Nobody's saying what he did. They just got rid of him. Pete Hegseth, before he was confirmed, said that he was going to get rid of anybody that has any. He said that guy should go. He'd already said it. And at one point we thought he was going to keep him, but then Donald Trump chopped him for no reason. We don't know why they chopped him. He wasn't a DEI hire. The man has been in the military for many years. So this is getting crazy and crazier, guys. And the way that they're going about these cuts is just not humane. These are people with families, children. They don't know what's going to happen. A lot of them don't know what's going to happen. And yet they're doing this cutting, and it's not really doing much for the budget. It's unnecessary. Do I believe that the government has some waste and things that we can do? Yes, every company goes through that. Every company goes through budget cuts. They cut travel, they cut stuff. I mean, headcount is a part of it, but they're not even taking the time to understand what these people do. There was a Texas Ranger guy who was probationary. They're getting rid of the Texas Rangers in the parks and things. So he said the parks are probably going to end up being very well not maintained. But his particular job was he was a tour guide for a sacred Native American tour. I think it was in Iowa, somewhere like that. I can't remember. So, of course, they're going to cut that because anything to deal with nature, POCs, people of color, Native Americans have not been nice to Trump. They fought him on a lot of things. So, so there you go right there. So they're just going through, and I don't know what their method is of how they're selecting them, but it's not working. So do I think the American people understood when Mr. Donald Trump says that he's going to balance the budget and all this stuff, that it was going to be people? I don't think they understood, guys, because not only is it for everybody they're cutting are not all liberal Democrats. It's hitting home. It's hitting their homes. It's hitting their businesses. It's hitting their farms, their stores, there's everything. It's hitting. And now people are beginning to have people that they know that are getting laid off. And so now they're having issues. We tried to tell you guys, Project 2025 was there. Now they want to have issues. So one of the dear congressmen from, I can't think of his name right now, from Georgia, and I'm sure you saw this in the news, went home to his town meeting. All of the congressmen are off right now. They went back to their districts. And he has a total Republican district, pretty much 85% Republicans, a little blue. And the people there were mostly Republicans, and they were letting him have it. Because they laid off a lot of people in the Atlanta area, which is where he's from, that area, Atlanta suburb. The CDC, they let go a lot of people. Why are they getting rid of the things that we need? Do we not care about a global disease? We've already gotten out of the World Health Network, but he got out of that the first time as well. This is crazy, guys. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And I don't think the American people voted for this. I don't. So if you're out there and you listen to this podcast and you voted for Donald Trump and you regret it, and tell me what you're thinking and what's going on in your head now that you see that these budget cuts are people, not agencies necessarily. It's people. It's parts of agencies. They're shutting down some agencies like USAID. That one I think was the worst thing to ever do, and the judges have let them do it. They've taken it to the courts, and they couldn't find any tangible reason to not do it, but they're still being challenged. So we'll see how that goes. So what I want to do now is look at one of my favorite shows, which I told you my favorite show on CNN. I don't like looking at CNN. I'm still kind of boycotting them because they made me mad during the election. I haven't come back totally, but I've never left Abby Phillips, her roundtable show, News Tonight with Abby Phillip. And the reason I like this platform so much is because she puts on a panel people from different sides, and they sit and they talk this stuff out. And every now and then, even if it's just a little bit of a mustard seed of progress, some is made on both sides. Because we got to listen to each other and try to understand why you think this way. I don't understand that, because Republicans to me have never been about but people of other people. They don't care. They didn't care about what happens to women's bodies, so why would they care about anybody else in another country? They don't even care about our own women here in our country getting proper prenatal health care with So they cut that, and they sat there and watched it happen and sent back to the states where there are some terrible laws in place. So why would they keep the USAID? Because they were sending food over to Africa and other countries. They don't care. So that's what we have. So I want you to listen to this exchange with Scott. But what I really want you to listen to is Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. He is a staunch Trump supporter. And what he says is just totally inhumane. And I just don't really like him anymore. I've just decided. So let's take a listen to this conversation on Abby Phillips' show.
Isn't there already a shortage at the FAA? Why do this now, especially considering what's happened in the States? And now, of course, you have this other incident and a few others.
Yeah, well, this one happened in Canada, but
yes.
I can only tell you what the Secretary of Transportation says. There are 45,000 employees at the FAA. We're talking about fewer than 400 people, and he says 0 air traffic controllers and critical safety personnel were let go. So if that's true, I don't really have a problem with it, to be honest with you. I do like the idea of keeping the people who are in the direct chain of command of safety and the air traffic control system and so on and so forth. But I have a hard time believing that there is a single government agency that doesn't have a bloat of administrative personnel that we could probably do without. And I think that's why a lot of voters are happy that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are finally going through the federal government and trying to take out some of this bureaucracy that we probably just don't need. So I'm reading to you what Sean Duffy says. He's the Secretary of the Transportation. I have no reason to doubt his numbers.
So this was before all the cuts started happening. So people are starting to get outraged. So this is kind of premature. So he says he thinks that because had some polls where people were saying that they were okay with it, but the polls are starting to change, guys. There are new polls out, and I'll share those with you. Not today, but I'll get some data on those polls and let you know how it's changing. Let's continue.
Karen, when you hear this, I mean, look, Americans are concerned about bloat in the federal government. They have been for a very long time. What do you make of how it's been meted out?
So the concern that I think a lot of Americans have, we can all agree there's bloat. We can all agree that we need to deal with that. At the same time, what we're seeing is speed for the sake of creating momentum to create a sense of things are happening. At the same time, look what happened Friday. We had nuclear scientists fired, and then they said, oops, we need those people because they have a technical skill that nobody else has. So the problem that I have with the way they're doing it is, and I went to the DOJ website to see if they would say anything about, look, we are conducting this process to make sure we don't harm American safety, their health, or take money out of their wallets. They don't say that. And we're finding out the consequences and the impact of some of these things. If you're a doctor for the VA in the Midwest and you're told you're going to be fired or you're waiting for this court to play out, What are you supposed to do with your client the veteran who's got PTSD? Are you trying to find them someone else to go see because you're not sure if you're going to be there in 2 weeks? Or are you assuming you'll be spared because someone will figure out that it's probably not smart to get rid of doctors who are at the VA who may be working on a critical function? So that's the concern. I think this could have been done with a lot more thoughtfulness about how do we protect people's safety. Even if you said, look, we're going to take 2 weeks at each agency and try to do some kind of rubric to make an assessment, not putting it into an AI system, by the way, which is some of what we've read that they've done. And I think what we're going to find is a number of these oops moments that could be dangerous.
I just think they need to read the room. I mean, there have been 3 major plane crashes in just less than a month. One of them was just a few blocks from the high school I went to in Northeast Philadelphia. And, tell that to the little boy with the metal in his head, trying to protect his sister during that plane crash. I think that not only do you have to protect the safety of Americans physically, but I think you have to protect our safety mentally. We see you laying off people from the FAA. At this point, nobody at the FAA is dispensable. I think you have to keep everybody there at least, for the time being, because we've had these major plane crashes that you haven't seen in 16 years.
So why are they targeting the FAA? I don't understand that. The FAA is, we have shortages in FAA right now, air traffic controllers. Why would you cut that? This makes no sense to me. They have no method at all. I don't know who's making the little 19-year-old guys with the thumb drives in there, programmers. They have no idea what these people do. They're not even trying to figure out what they do. They're just cutting. Here we go.
And the optics of this is what you're referring to.
I think the issue is they're not whacking enough. There's this concept in private equity when you get a bankrupt company and you go in there, you cut 20% more than your initial read. And then you find like a pool of mercury, the organization gels back together again. Always cut deeper, harder when there's fat and waste. The FAA, it's not the people. The code is cobalt. It's from the 60s. It needs CapEx put into it for the technology to be upgraded to make it safer. Fat like a chicken. All of these agencies are like big fat chickens dripping over barbecues of fat. This is the best barbecue I've ever seen, but I don't think it's happening fast enough. They're not cutting enough. Keep slashing, keep hacking while you have a 24-month mandate before the midterms. Cut, more cutting. Believe me, it's going to work out just great. Everybody should be
people with
happy
the
about
nuclear
this.
codes, cut them too.
Cut everything. Because if you don't see what they're doing and they can't show you that they're adding value, you whack.
But it's
All right, so that's what really upset me about his statement was that he says cut anything. What kind of strategy is that? This is a millionaire, billionaire, probably, I'm sure. And they have no heart for people. All they care about is money. And another thing, Mr. Wonderful, it's COBOL, not cobalt. So you don't know anything about programming. It's COBOL, not cobalt. So let's keep going.
It's not clear that they're even asking people to show us what you're doing. Again, this was a story Friday, and literally Elon said, oops, we gotta rehire them because nobody knows how to do what these people know how to do.
Yeah, the
And he
nuclear
admitted-
thing. Okay, it gets it wrong once in a while. Big deal. So what?
I agree
That's
with that.
10% of the time.
It's okay. I actually think it's okay if they run into a stumble here or there because the project is so massive. The need to cut is so massive. The government is so massive. It's inconceivable that you wouldn't make a mistake here or there. But I think that's acceptable if the greater goal is achieved, which is a smaller government, more efficient government. Trim the fat.
Even if someone dies, or even if someone, because
Are
we're
you
talking
alleging that
about.
someone has died from this?
We don't know. I'm talking about when the rubber meets the road. I'm talking about, for example, Kansas City, 30,000 government employees might be laid off. It will destroy the economy of Kansas City. That's okay.
Why do you say that?
Because I'm reading what the individuals from Kansas City have been saying, that they're very concerned.
What do you think they're going to say when they're going to get
Of
whacked?
course they're going to say that, but my point is, do we think that's smart?
Does
to
the-
live in an American city just go under?
How many American cities need a massively oversized federal government to stay afloat. I mean, isn't that said more about the city than the government?
But when did we get to the point where presidents are measuring themselves by how many people they put out of work instead of how many people they get jobs
Not a moment too soon.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Now I take offense to the whole Kansas City thing. So the 3-state area, and I'm calling it 3 states, D.C., even though D.C. is not a state, D.C., Virginia, Maryland, that 3-state, tri-state area, the main source of employment in those areas is government. You know how some cities will have, they may have a factory there and everybody works at the factory. That's what happens in those cities. Kansas City is a large federal government hub. A lot of stuff comes out of Kansas City. And people don't realize that. So gutting that city, that's going to affect their economy. Do not get that? A more smart. And you guys, working in government is a lucrative job for a lot of people, because a lot of people like to work in federal government. And I'll talk about that again. Let's just finish this.
Because the government only ever gets
big
bigger,
fat
never
chickens,
smaller.
hopefully they lay some eggs and maybe then we can afford it.
This strikes me as something that was done just for the sake of doing. And I think it was a tone-deaf move. It wasn't a big enough cut to do anything. It was a completely tone-deaf move. I mean, I find people are always interested in efficiency as long as it doesn't affect them. And it's strange to me that we got enough people to go and ride around the racetrack behind the presidential limousine and such, and to guard 3 residences. And we're never cutting people from there. But to come now and make sort of a tone-deaf move to cut the FAA is again, this is an image thing, and they want to be seen as doing something.
All right, so there you go. So how about this too? Donald Trump. It's been reported that Donald Trump has cost the American people $10.7 million with his golf games. Cut that. Why don't you cut that? We don't need you to play golf. Play golf on your own dime. Quit playing on the American people. Save that money. That's $10.7 million. You flying all your buddies in from everywhere, taking Air Force One back and forth to play golf. Yeah. Stop that. Cut some of that out, Mr. President. So I was talking about these cities and how government is the livelihood for all these people. And the reason why in the 3-state area, Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Maryland, those are heavily African-American areas. And I told you in another podcast that there's a lot of black wealth in a county in Maryland. It's actually the richest black county in Maryland. In the country is in Maryland, Prince George County and Charles County. I think it's the two. Those are the richest counties in America. And most of those people work in government, in professional jobs. They're professionals. They're working in professional jobs. Do you know why they work there? Because the federal government's going to do right and hire people. That's always been our fail-safe. If they go out into corporate America, they probably wouldn't have these positions of executive directors and leaders of all these agencies and things like that. So the government has afforded that wealth to these families in that area. So now the gutting has happened. A lot of it is because there's a lot of people of color in U.S. government because of that 3-state area. Do y'all hear me? So Trump is not stupid. He is kinda, but he has a motive. And people of color and anything that is, if a black person in a job, they're yelling DEI, it's not always DEI. So what I did was I did some research because I have some very good friends. 2 of my best friends live in that area, in the Washington, D.C. area. I go every year, visit every year, Baltimore, D.C. area. And a lot of them work in government. And so I just had to ask some questions of some friends to find out what's going on. So let me tell you about the Office of Personnel Management. Yeah, this is the Office of Personnel Management. The Office of Personnel Management is a federal agency that manages the civil service of the United States. It serves as the Human Resources Department for federal employees and agencies. Key roles: recruitment and hiring. It oversees hiring policies for federal agencies, helps recruit and retain a qualified, diverse federal workforce. That's their job to do that. All right. So pay and benefits. Administers federal employee pay, retirement benefits, health insurance programs, federal employees' health benefits, and FEHB. Manages federal retirement systems like the Civil Service Retirement and Federal Employees Retirement System. Policy and guidance. Policy guidance on personnel policies, workplace diversity, labor relations, performance management, or federal. This is stuff that all companies do. Background investigations, conducts security clearances, background checks for federal employees, training and development. So their mission is to ensure that the federal government has an effective civilian workforce that serves the American public efficiently. Now, the OPM is headquartered in Washington, D.C. and plays a crucial role in managing federal employees, benefits, and work environments. So this is kind of the human resources of the government. Does this agency handle any severance pay, or is that relegated by Congress? Now, the Office of Personnel Management, the reason I asked about this is who handles the severance pay? They do not handle severance pay. The Congress does that. Congress owns the purse, right? They make all the money. So they're like maybe your finance department. It's Congress, all right? So federal severance pay, who qualifies? Federal employees who are involuntarily separated from service, e.g. due to layoffs or downsizing, may qualify for severance pay. Eligibility depends on factors like length of service and whether the employee is eligible for an immediate retirement annuity. How is it calculated? Severance pay for federal employees is based on years, age, pay level, and there's a formula that gets the federal regulations. For example, employees receive 1 week basic pay for each year of service up to 10 years and 2 weeks basic pay. And I got that when I was at my company. I didn't work for federal government. Congress establishes the rules for federal severance pay under statutes like 5 U.S.C., and there's some numbers, So Congress holds the purse. Do you understand that? So the next thing I ask about, well, how are these people getting paid their severance? What is going on? So my source tells me that everybody's kind of waiting around for a continuing resolution. Now, a continuing resolution is when they balance the budget. Y'all know every year they close the government because we don't have enough money. That money has to be appropriated by Congress because they haven't balanced the budget. So these people have been let go. They're not getting paychecks. And they haven't gotten severance pay because there is no continuing resolution set. Congress is not going to do that until March. And then the way it's going to go, the government's probably going to shut down. So these people will never have any money for a while. And this is so wrong. This is wrong. And this is what they're telling me that's happening. Some may get their play. I'll read this to you. A continuing resolution is a temporary funding measure that allows the U.S. federal government to continue operating at current spending levels when Congress has not passed the annual appropriation bills. It prevents a government shutdown by extending funding for a set period. All right. Effects on civil servants. These are the people getting laid off. Pay and employment stability. Most federal employees continue to work and receive pay if a continued resolution is in place. However, if Congress fails to pass one, a CR, or full budget, some agencies may face furloughs, temporary unpaid leave for non-essential employees. So a lot of these people may not be getting any money, guys, at all. These are families. These are families and people that are there waiting on these deals, and they're not getting any money. So most federal employees continue to receive now hiring and freezes and delayed promotions. Agencies may pause hiring and delay promotions or salary adjustments due to uncertainty in long-term funding. So they're just in limbo. All right. Restricted operations and planning. Agencies cannot start new projects, sign new contracts, or make significant long-term decisions because they are operating on temporary funding. This is when Donald Trump was trying to stop everything. He didn't realize what he was doing here. So it was going to mess up a whole lot of people. Civil servants working in agencies that provide public services like Social Security may experience backlogs and delays in processing claims, benefits, or tax returns. Reduced travel and training and travel. Many agencies may limit that. That's a good thing to cut. Travel, stop everybody from traveling for a little bit. Impact on contractors. Government contractors working with federal agencies may face payment delays or contract interruptions. So there are a lot of farmers and people that have government contracts and small businesses, and he's putting stops on all this stuff. So, in short, while a continued resolution keeps the government running, it creates instability and prevents agencies from effectively planning for long-term priorities. If a CR is repeatedly used instead of passing budget, we're going to run into this all the time, right? They have been doing this a lot, having to patch the government. This is a continuing resolution. They haven't balanced the budget. It hasn't been done since Bill Clinton, is what I've heard. Bill Clinton was the last one to balance the budget and get everything where it needs to be. It's not balanced. They're just patching it up. So all these people that are getting laid off, in short, are not getting any money. Let me see what I said about government severance pay. Government workers who are laid off due to budget constraints or program cuts are typically not covered under a continuing resolution, since CRs are meant to extend funding. However, their severance pay could be affected in the following ways. If a CR is in place, it will generally prevent layoffs by keeping funding stable, so most employees would remain on the payroll. So if there's nothing in place, he's firing people, and there's nothing for them to get the money from. Do you understand that? If an agency was already planning layoffs before the CR, severance pay should be processed as usual, unless the funding source is uncertain. So they would have already factored that in. It's not factored in. Severance payments could be delayed if the shutdown affects payroll processing or the funding of the agencies responsible for payment. Employees deemed essential would continue working without immediate pay, but would receive back pay once it comes back and all that stuff. So, a CR only temporarily funds the government. So the way that things are going right now, guys, and the Democrats are saying they're not going to vote for the shutdown, these poor people who have been laid off have not been getting severance pay. And I will verify that to be sure and make sure that if anybody's gotten any severance pay, I will find out. But this is what my source told me, that he has a friend that's sitting around. He doesn't have any money coming in. He's been laid off. He's gotten his final paycheck, and then now he's waiting on the severance. But until a continuing resolution has been funded to pay these people, there's no money. They can't just give money. Congress has to appropriate the money. So this is a lot worse than what people think that it is. I know that was a lot, but I had to find out, and my source is very well adept into this field, and he knows about government benefits and things of that nature. So that's what I found out, and that's what's going on. And there are people that are upset, they're crying, it's just a lot going on in the area. I'll be up there in the area probably in the summertime, and I'll get a feel for what's going on. I go every year to visit my friends, but it's not been fun. It's not been fun at all. So that's that. I know that was a lot on that, but I wanted to give you a sense of these layoffs, guys. It is a mess. It really is a mess. And I feel for all the people that are being affected. These people have homes. They have children. They have mortgages. They have to live. And I guess they can file for unemployment. I don't know. I don't know that. Can government employees apply for unemployment? I don't know. A federal department, they have some things you can't do at a federal level. I don't know that they can do that. So something else I need to research for you to see if these people are getting some kind of funding at all. Okay. All right. So let's move to our next subject. And this is all about Mr. Donald Trump with this king mentality. King mentality. Guys, he's strange. I recently saw this video where he was talking to a summit group. I can't remember what the summit was. And he sounded almost human, but I want you to hear what he said in his own words. Just listen to what he said here. Here we go.
I think what I do is, look, what I'm doing now is the most exciting job in the world. It's a hard job, not an easy job. It's a nasty job. But I will tell you that there is just nothing I could do to enjoy my life, whether it's that or anything else that you'd ask, because this is the ultimate. I mean, I had to make a big decision, and it was a very risky decision, because if I would have lost, my life would have been a much different life. It would have been a very nasty life. They were going after me at levels that nobody's ever seen before. Not Andrew Jackson, not Abraham Lincoln, but nobody was treated like me. Nobody. And I will tell you, you learn a lot about yourself. But there's nothing I'd rather do. I had to make a decision. Do I do this? Because if I lost, it would have been very, very bad. It was dangerous, actually, very dangerous in so many different ways. And I decided to do it. And I said, I have to win, because if I don't, when I spoke to a friend of mine the other night, he said, you know, if you lost, it would have been very, it was actually Sean Hannity just before we did the interview last night. He said, boy, if you would have lost, you would have had a tough life. You would have had a very tough life. So there was a certain amount of courage involved in this decision to run. And it's a great honor to win by this much, to win all 7 swing states, the popular vote. Popular vote doesn't get won that much by Republicans for whatever reason. I think that's changing because, again, we're the party of common sense and they're the party of some real bad things. And I think they'll change. I think they have to change. It would be wonderful. I'm going to be having lunch with some of the Democrats next week, and it would be wonderful if we could work together. I think working together would be great. But they have to change. You can't get elected on the programs that they want, and that's really what America wants to see. So there's nothing I'd rather do than what I'm doing right now. I wouldn't have run if I thought Biden was doing a good job. If I thought I wouldn't have run. Because, as I said, it was very dangerous to run in a lot of ways. In fact, my ear will show that. When you look at it closely, my ear, I have that throbbing feeling every once in a while. But it was dangerous in a lot of different ways. But he was so bad that I had no choice but to do it. If I thought he was doing a great job, I wouldn't have run, and I would be very happy. I actually wanted him to do a good job. I was saying, do this, do that. I'm telling them, do things. They should have done what I said. But I would have been very happy not to have run, and frankly to have seen somebody do a good job. But our country was going to hell, and I really sort of had to run.
Did you really have to run, Mr. President? The only reason you ran was to stay out of jail. Because look, listen to this is what dear Jack Smith said. However, Special Counsel Jack Smith said there was plenty of evidence to convict Trump in the 2020 election interference investigation, which was dropped after Trump won in 2025. His 137-page report implied it was likely Trump would have served jail time had he not been voted back into the White House. So what do you think about that? So hearing him in his own words, he almost sounded human for a minute. He almost sounded human for a quick second, because he was saying that he wished that he knew that if he didn't win, that he was going to be in trouble. He knew he was going to be in trouble if he didn't run. And that tells you right there, guys, this was never about the American people. What did he say first? He said that he had to run. And then he said he had to win. And that brings me back to my thinking. I have always thought, and I don't like to put conspiracy theories out there or anything like that, but I have always thought there's probably some funny business between him and Elon. I just don't trust them. Ain't got no proof. I'm not going to say anything, but I don't trust them. And I wouldn't be surprised if something happened. And dear Merrick Garland, I was so disappointed in him that he didn't, if he got something, he probably was too afraid or didn't think he could bring it through, and he didn't even bring it through. But it was just, if there was interference in our election and we ever found out, it's too late now because the dumb election was ratified. But did y'all hear that? In his own words, he said that his life would have been and we didn't do that to you, Mr. Trump. You have always been in trouble. You've always been in courts. That's your life. You made these things. Nobody asked you to do these things, cause an insurrection, harass women, and all these other things that you've done, your business practices. Nobody said that to do that. Nobody made you do that. So don't blame it on the courts. There were juries of your peers that listened to the evidence and they said guilty. Now, if you don't trust the court system and people that sat there with the jury, then you know that's why this is such a travesty that it was let go, because a jury found him guilty of those 34 counts. You know what I mean? Yep. And then this whole king mentality thing. And then this, he had a meeting with a lot of the governors. And I don't know if y'all have heard this, but listen to how he talks to the governor of Maine. Here we go.
CAA has complied immediately, by the way, that's good. But I understand Maine, is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply, because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics. Every state has a responsibility to comply with Title IX. They have an obligation, a legal obligation, and will be enforcing aggressive.
This is all about the transgender thing, because this is not even an issue. Of the 500 and however many transgender, there's not even any. It's like 3. You can count them on your hand as to how many athletes that there may be that will fall into this. And they made this the center of their campaign because there's such prejudice against the LGBTQ community and transgender children and teens. This shouldn't even be a big issue. And so that's what that was about. He was telling her that in Maine, she says that they already have a law intact that covers that. And then his law can't supersede that. And it can't. That's why she said, see you in court. They have a law, state mandate in the state of Maine. I'll have to find out what that law is and I'll bring it back to you. And that's why she said that. And it wasn't that she's just trying to buck what he's saying. You know, so does that federal laws, a lot of federal laws do not dupe some of the state laws. It depends on what it is. So apparently she has something in place that she knows that she can keep. So she said, see you in court. I was really proud of her because that's a Democrat. Everybody has to be scared of Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Dear Donald Trump. My God. So something that I said, and I probably wasn't clear about who can. I was saying if Trump were to go to Congress and try to get a third term in the Constitution, you know, the president can only run so many terms based on the Constitution. And then I didn't make it clear as to how you can change an amendment. So changing an amendment in the Constitution is pretty hard. It's pretty hard. So I want to just go over that with you guys really quick here and tell you how you can change the Constitution. It's a hard thing to do. So here we go. To change or amend the U.S. Constitution, the process involves Congress and the states. Here's what has to happen. Step 1, a proposal. An amendment can be proposed in one of two ways, by Congress or by the Constitutional Convention. By Congress, a proposed amendment must pass both the House and Representatives and the Senate by 2/3 majority vote in each chamber. That's the most common method. And then there's by Constitutional Convention, 2/3 of state legislators, that's 34 of 50 states, can call for a constitutional convention to propose amendments. This method has never been used, all right? And then step 2, there's ratification. Once an amendment is proposed, it must be ratified in one of two ways, by state legislator or 3/4 of state legislator. Let me push this up a little bit. 3/4 of the states, 38 out of 50, must hold special ratifying conventions and approve the amendment. This method has only been used once to ratify the 21st Amendment, repealing prohibition. So the states wanted that liquor, okay? They did a convention and they got it done. Summary: 2/3 of Congress, 2/3, that's a lot of people, guys, must propose the amendment. 3/4 of states must ratify it. So that's a lot. This process is deliberately difficult to ensure only widely supported amendments are added to the Constitution. Wow. That's very smart, forefathers. Y'all did that very smart. I'm glad you did that because it makes me feel a little bit better about some of this stuff here. So, my next question was, has this ever happened? Has this ever happened? Let's see. Go look for it. Has this ever happened? Yes, let me pause it right here. Yes, the U.S. Constitution has been amended 27 times, so the process changing it has successfully occurred, though it's rare because of the difficulty. Here are some examples. The Bill of Rights in 1791, the first 10 amendments were added shortly after the Constitution was ratified, addressing individual rights and limiting government power. And then there's the 13th Amendment, abolished slavery, passed after the Civil War. The 19th Amendment, 1920, gave women the right to vote. And then the 21st Amendment, repealed the 18th Amendment of Prohibition. Okay, the 13th Amendment, let's see, what else? The 21st Amendment. And then let's see what we have here. So these are like big, giant things that have happened. The 26th Amendment lowered the voting age to 18, partly in response to the Vietnam War. So here's some failed attempts. The Equal Rights Amendment, that failed. It didn't pass in the states. And the other one was to make D.C. statehood. Those are two that failed. Yeah, the District of Columbia Voting Rights Amendment proposed in 1978 to give D.C. full representation in Congress. It did not get enough state ratification. So while it's happened, these are key takeaways. While it's happened 27 times, the process is intentionally rigorous to ensure, go up a little bit here, to ensure only amendments with widespread support are added to the Constitution. The most recent amendment, the 27th, was ratified in 1992, limiting changes to congressional pay. Okay, so that's it's pretty hard to get that done, guys, on changing the Constitution. So the birthright citizenship, although there's a lot to do, if he takes it through Congress, he knows he has to go through that rigmarole, right? But it can still go to the Supreme Court. And they can actually interpret the law. So let me tell you what that. The Supreme Court cannot strike down a constitutional amendment as an amendment. However, they can interpret. This is critical in the challenge to the birthright citizenship under the Fourth Amendment. The 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868, includes citizenship clause, which states all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to jurisdiction thereof, that's the little thing that's going to get them, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. The key phrase, subject of jurisdiction thereof, has been the focal point of legal and political debates, especially regarding children or of undocumented immigrants. So this could go to the Supreme Court, and they could come back with a ruling on the interpretation of the law. So, yeah, the court might decide whether the clause applies to children or undocumented immigrants or others in specific circumstances. So it's not going to just get undocumented. If you mess with that, it's going to get some other people, because the Supreme Court is going to have to be really, because there's going to be documented immigrants, the people that have had children over here, and it's going to get other people. The only people that are not considered, if they have a child, if they're a diplomat, that's not considered a citizen either. So they can reinterpret it. The court might issue a ruling that limits or broadens how the 14th Amendment applies. For example, they could reinterpret subject to jurisdiction thereof to exclude certain groups, effectively narrowing the scope of birthright citizenship. The amendment itself remains intact. The text of the 14th Amendment wouldn't change, only the application could be affected. And I told you how you have to do 2/3 and all of that. So that's what could happen, guys. That could actually happen. And we know what the Supreme Court is. Those are his boys. He got some boys up in there and a girl. So, there we go. Oh, well. Now, I want to talk about all of the Republican stooges. You know what? Here's something, guys, that Republicans are unable to do. Even with Barack, Joe, Bill Clinton, Kamala, if they were doing something wrong, I didn't have a problem with calling them out, my own people. A Republican congressman or senator will not even do it if it saves their life. They're so afraid of Donald Trump. It is ridiculous. And they're afraid, like he did the governor of Maine there. He told her he was going to take away her spending. He can't probably legally do that. He probably can't legally do that, but that's what she said, see ya in court. But you see how Donald Trump bullies them so bad. They're so afraid of him. I ain't afraid of him. And I don't think the Democrats are afraid of him either. I know Jasmine Crockett's not. She's not afraid of him at all. They're bullying my girl right now because she said something that kind of got out of context. We'll talk about that. But here's I want to let you listen to some of these Republican congressmen stooges is what I'm calling them, because they have no backbone, and I'm just done with all of them. The Senate and the Congress, all of them. There's not one out there that has got a conscience of what's going on. And the word on the street is, the truth on the street is, the Democrats will tell you in a minute. They tell us all the time they don't agree with that, but they will never do it in front of a committee or anything like that. They're never going to do it. They're not going to vote against him because they're afraid. They are afraid, guys. So, Mitch McConnell, the only reason why he's doing it because he's retiring. Do y'all get that? If they're outgoing, they'll do it. But if they're not, they won't do it. And that's so selfish. Liz Cheney gave up her whole livelihood for what was right. Adam Kinzinger, he gave up his. They stood for what was right. Sometimes you got to do that in life. In life. So here's stooge number one. We're listening.
But I think that there's a lot of Americans who are supportive of this effort to clear up government waste, including members of Congress on both sides of the aisle. But there's also concern by how much access Musk and Doge staffers have to their private sensitive data. You're also on the House Oversight Committee, and given what we just talked about, Musk's investments with China and billions of dollars before the government, and now, potentially having access to all this private sensitive data and not having full transparency on what is happening with that.
Yes, ma'am.
What information do you actually have on what Doge is doing with that data? What are your questions? What do you want to know? Certainly, as a member of the oversight, you have some questions.
Well, first of all, Elon Musk, when he owned PayPal, they never had a breach of security. IRS is a nightmare, ma'am. You have folks that still haven't gone back to work 3 or 4 years after COVID. As a United States congressman, I can write a letter of concern over a constituent of mine having a problem with the IRS, and it takes up to 6 months for me to get a response.
Look, I'm not saying there's no problems with government agencies or the IRS.
Hold on. You asked me a question.
But you're not answering it.
The IRS has hundreds of different groups that have access to this stuff, and yet no one's complained about that. You don't hear
there's checks and balances in place for the specific system. That's not true. Even the IRS, even politicals and the former IRS commissioner who was just on the show yesterday said even he didn't go to it, and it's highly unusual for politicals to have access to that system. Do you not have questions about what they're doing with the data, why they want access to private tax information from Americans? Do you not have those questions as a member of the Oversight Committee?
I have questions. The only reason you'd have questions is if you're doing something crooked. And you're going to see a lot of congressmen with red faces when they follow this paper trail back to members of Congress, ma'am. And that's the bottom line. Where were they fussing the last 3 or 4 years? I mean, we've had these groups different groups have access. Hundreds of different people have access to this that are nowhere in the scope of what needs to be.
I want y'all to notice something in his background. He's going to talk about these 2 guns right there. Look at those guns. He's such a Republican. This is the scary kind of Republican that I find just fearful. This is the kind of Republican that is fearful because you just look at him. He just looks like the person that you want to not trust and will never do anything that has anything to do with any people of color. But keep listening to him. Here we go.
And yet no one raised one peep about it. Now Elon Musk gets a hold of it, and he's going to do something. He's going to make some changes that need to be made. And you all are pitching a fit. It's the same old line, and you attack the message
To be
here,
clear, you
not
all
the
were not
message.
pitching a fit. As I said, a lot of people think it's a good thing to weed out waste, but there are fair questions to be asking congressmen about these unelected people going in and having access to private information from Americans. How can you not be asking those questions? Those are very fair questions. But hold on, let me follow up with you. Hold on, because there's a difference between, listen.
Hey, hold on for a second. How many people at the IRS are elected? How many of those are elected, ma'am? You're proving my point. You've got all these people, and this is a very porous agency. We know that.
There's a difference between civil service and checks and balances in place in a small group and politicals who are going in, many of them young staffers who we know nothing about, really. Why don't you have those questions as a member of the oversight committee? If a Democratic administration was doing this, would you not be asking questions?
And the questions are being asked, ma'am, but I want you to look at these.
I'm not hearing them from you.
Those are Japanese. Those are Japanese rifle. That, guess what? My dad was 21 years old when he killed the people that carried that. You all don't question the fact that, we these 22-year-old people, the ones that fight our dadgum wars, but yet
there's a
when
difference
they do
between
else,
members of the greatest generation going to foreign service, risking their life to serve our country, and young staffers going in with their computers and trying to get access to personal data. There is a big difference, but I want to follow up here. I just want to follow up because I think this is an important question.
You won't answer your own questions, ma'am.
No, Congressman, hold on. I want to go to this question because, again, it's not a question of whether waste should be rooted out of the government. So many people agree with that. But now we're seeing it's the way it's being done. The government is trying to claw back several employees who oversaw nuclear weapons after they were fired. They realized, we made a mistake. We need these staffers who oversee nuclear weapons. A professor at the University of Maryland, Don Kettle, who specializes in civil service, told the Washington Post that yes, the government is likely full of wasteful bloat, but said a clumsy fix is worse than no fix at all, saying it's like going to a meat market, getting a piece of steak, and trying to cut out the fat with a sledgehammer. That would only make a mess of the meat. Do you think, Congressman, that is a fair point, that the way this is being done is clumsy rather than methodical?
Again, you're upset about you're attacking the message carrier, not the results. You talk about nuclear secrets. You had a person who was in charge of nuclear secrets, a man who dressed up as a woman, would go into the airport and steal women's luggage, was overseeing those nuclear secrets under the Biden administration, and I never heard y'all say a peep about that. Again, man.
I don't know anything about that. I'll be transparent.
Elon Musk, you need to look it up. It's all over the internet. It's all over. He was uncharged.
But the question is,
this
is unrelated to the people overseeing nuclear weapons being fired. And Elon Musk himself said, we're moving so fast, of course there will be mistakes. The question is, some of these mistakes are really high stakes. Accidentally firing people overseeing nuclear weapons. Do you see that point?
Humans will make mistakes, ma'am, but currently these are bloated programs. You have no-show employees that are angry that they're having to go back to work, that they've moved, and they're not.
No one's disagreeing. There's bloat and waste.
Jobs were.
No one's disagreeing.
Well, then why are y'all not exposing it? Have y'all even talked about, hey, Mozambique, we sent them $10 million for circumcision? Okay. I mean, goodness gracious, ma'am. Americans are paying
we've been covering at length
salaries.
Where the money is going
to. Haven't. All y'all do is run down Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and you continuously do this, and that's why your ratings are in the tank, ma'am.
All right, Congressman Tim Burchett, we're going to leave it there. I do appreciate your time coming on and having this conversation. Thank you very much.
There you go. That's your typical congressman, Republican congressman. Conspiracy theory, lies, whatever. So now he's saying Mozambique. So now they know where they're coming from, but he still got the wrong number of what they sent. All right, here goes my next stooge. Let's see who we got here.
Said last night that Ukraine started the war with Russia.
No, I'm kidding. I think if you listen to his statements, I listened to it over and over again. I think what he was referring to, and I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but because the president and I have had really in-depth conversations about this. I think what the president was referring to is this war would never have taken place if he was in office, and he wishes that Zelensky maybe would have came to him first before the war started, because Zelensky had plenty of time.
Here's where I disagree with the White House. To the extent that the White House said that Ukraine started the war, I disagree. I think Vladimir Putin started the war. I also believe, through bitter experience, that Vladimir Putin is a gangster. He's a gangster with a black heart.
I do not agree that President Zelensky is to blame in any way.
Can you talk? Thank you, President Trump has weighed in.
Invasion by Russia.
Look, I think the one aspect that we should take into account about what caused this war, a part of the war was caused because was as a result of Ukraine's weakened reputation for democratic reforms. Let's just be honest about this.
I absolutely would not say that Zelensky started the war. It is quite clear who started the war. It was absolutely Russia at Putin's directive, and I certainly would not call President Zelensky a dictator.
And what's your read on President Trump's comments yesterday with regard to Russia and Ukraine? How should we interpret that?
I try not to read other people's minds.
President Trump said last night.
So there you go. All of them, no backbone. They won't answer the questions. And the ones that are saying they disagree with him, if there's a vote comes up, they're going to vote for whatever Trump says, no matter what. Trump is out there trying to say that Zelensky and Ukraine started the war, and other Republicans, and the first guy was trying to say, well, I think what he was trying, and then they try to interpret what he meant. No, he meant that. This time around, Trump means everything that he's saying. There's no interpreting him, guys. There are no people that have really good minds around him. They're all loyalist lackeys, even the Republican Party. Susan Collins and Murkowski, y'all are disappointing me because even though you usually vote the right way, but you haven't. You put Kash Patel in there, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and Tulsi Gabbard. And you had all those hard questions, and then what? You ratified. You went ahead and confirmed them. So what difference does it make? They're all afraid of Trump. So do I have one more? Oh, I have one more. So this is the guy. He's the deputy chief of staff. And this guy is one of the architects or the writers of Project 2025. And he is just horrible to talk to, period. So listen to this exchange. Here we go.
Disappear forever.
Stephen, let's calm down. We're not having a debate.
There's no reason
about whether there are places.
You are clearly trying to debate me, and I will be as excited as I want to be about the fact that we are saving Americans billions of dollars, that we are ending the theft and waste and grift and corruption, that we are stopping American taxpayer dollars from subsidizing a rogue federal bureaucracy that has been relentlessly weaponized against the American people.
Okay,
you
Stephen,
may not care about this
I'm
issue.
not talking about
your colleagues may
whether
not care about this
there's
issue.
not an
But we care
area
about this
to
issue.
cut
The
in
American
government.
people care about this issue.
They also care about privacy.
And the American
so let me
public
ask you about
overwhelmingly
that.
supports what President
Stephen,
Trump is doing.
Let's talk about IRS data the DOJ will be able to access. You have DOJ asking for access to the IRS systems. This includes the integrated data retrieval system. I know you've talked about this a little bit. Will DOJ employees be able to access individual taxpayer ID numbers and social security numbers?
No. But also, keep in mind, you keep
Will they
talking
be able
about
to
DOJ
access
employees.
taxpayer bank account information?
They will not be able to access anything that any other appropriately authorized federal employee could access. When you keep talking about, quote, DOJ employees, you're just talking about federal workers. You're just literally talking about federal workers. Your question will be, can federal workers do their job? The job of the federal workers at the IRS is to prevent... Well, I'm telling you that is actually what you are asking. DOJ is part of the federal government. It is a term to describe the employees of the federal government who've been tasked with anti-fraud and anti-corruption activities. Again, you may not consider it a scandal that millions of illegal aliens are accepting and receiving taxpayer benefits. You might not consider it a scandal that millions of illegal aliens have stolen Social Security numbers and are committing rampant theft of American resources.
You say that you're looking at widespread fraud in the IRS data, and you mentioned yesterday, and you mentioned again here, illegal immigrants who are getting child tax credits. Are you looking for that information in the IRS data?
Anytime a crime is committed, of course there should be an investigation. Is it your position that if somebody who is
Stephen,
here
are you looking for that
is stealing
information in the
taxpayer
IRS
dollars,
data?
the federal government will find every illegal alien who is stealing American taxpayer dollars. And that's what Americans
will you
expect
find
to
that
happen.
in the IRS
I don't
data
even
and
fathom
share
the
that with
premise
law
of your
enforcement?
question.
It's a simple question. Will you
Anyone
find that
who's-
information in the IRS data and share that with law
If
enforcement?
IRS investigators find illegal aliens stealing taxpayer money, of course they'll be referred to ICE. The entire...
Do you see that guy? He is so confrontational. All he cares about is there's illegal aliens. I want to see some receipts. I want them to show me how many they find, how much money, who are they? Are they really finding this stuff? Are they just going off of conspiracy theory? We have not seen any receipts of all of this stuff. They're just telling us. And you go to the stupid Doge website, it's not telling you much of anything. So this is a farce, guys. It's a farce. It's embarrassing. And it's driving me bonkers that they're just in there like some unit that's taking over our government, which they have. Some alien unit, because these people are, oh my God, I can't see anything positive so far that's come out of this administration. Nothing. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find it. All right. So those are the stooges of the day from the Trump camp. Now, meanwhile, on the Democratic side, we've got D.L. Hughley calling out Trevor Noah because Trevor said something controversial and it kind of bounced back on Trevor. So here's what D.L. Hughley, who I love because he spends a lot of time working with causes and he gets the word out to our people, and people need to start listening to DL. He's a very smart guy. Here we go.
Stupidest thing I've ever. And first off, I heard enough from South Africans this year. That's enough. I'm like, between Elon Musk and Trump, I don't need to hear about race from two dudes from South Africa. I heard enough. Black schools and HBCUs and our system exist. And she could have said that virtually about every system that exists in America, from policing to banking to housing. Every single one is inundated with white supremacy. All of it. So, and the thing that I find that I resent the most is that our story always starts in the middle. HBCUs came as a result of what we couldn't have. Everywhere we live, every black neighborhood is where we were told to live. Everywhere. Even school, like they want integration some places. I bet you wanted the Super Bowl because without black people, that shit would be rugby. So it's an interesting conversation to have, except that I think the outcome, I mean, where she lands is a bit disingenuous. It's specifically, you can't just talk about education because the only reason you get educated is to indoctrinate, is to be involved in those other systems.
My understanding was one of the underlying reasons why it was so important to integrate schools is because black schools were grossly underfunded.
And still are.
And still are. But by integrating, you're creating more of a level playing field where everybody's in the same school.
It should be the same. What happened was whatever schools white kids could go to, when black kids started going there, they left and they took their resources with them. So they in fact became, look at every school, look at all the schools we go to that at one time, integration meant that we could come and they left. Not only did they leave, they took their resources. So this notion that integration ever existed was wrong. White flight happened as soon as the integration started. And with them, they took their resources. So we still, in effect, have virtually the same thing.
I remember vividly the early 60s and seeing, people getting beaten over the heads with batons. I remember Mississippi and Alabama, where they wouldn't let black kids into schools. It's better today. There's still racism, but it has gotten better over the years.
That is undeniable. But we try to put someone, Ruby Bridges, who integrated schools in Alabama and Louisiana, is still alive. She's 71. She's still alive. So what America tends to do is act like it's so long ago. Yes, they don't wear hoods and maybe they don't do the things that they did before, but some of it is still so entrenched, so some of it's so insidious that I think that people. This is my honest assessment of it. I don't think most white people agree with the motives of white supremacists and white nationalists. I don't think they like their words, but I think they agree with their goals, which is to keep white people in charge. I think that they don't agree with their motives. They don't might not agree with their terminology or their verbiage, but they most.
There you go, DL. DL, he speaks his mind, but he does good research. He always speaks truth. And if he's wrong, he's going to come back and tell you. I love that brother. Love that brother and what he does for the movement. Yes. So the next one and my last one here is Dear Roland Martin. And he's calling us out. I'm talking us African Americans. He's letting us have it because a lot of us have, like the black females, they're still on break. They're not doing anything. And you got James Carville over there telling the Democrats, just be still and let them just put everything out and they're going to run over themselves. They'll destroy themselves. This method, I don't know if that method works. I go off the method of the word of God. Faith without works is dead. So you need to do something. So I guess what James Carville is suggesting is something. But he says we need to get out of their way and quit 911 and everything and just let them go through what they have to go through. But some of this stuff can be so permanently destroyed that you got to jump in, James. You have to. You can't just sit back. These lawyers and attorney generals and these lawsuits are coming quickly. And the American people are starting to get wise to what's happening. Because I don't think they realize, I'll say this again, that balancing the budget meant they were going to get rid of all these people, including you, MAGA people. Even dear Jesse, what's his name on Fox, who I can't even look at Fox, but he's such an obnoxious guy over there he was doing some crazy talk about DEI and letting people go and just being kind of fun with it and funny. And then when it got close to home, when a good buddy of his was let go out of the Veterans Administration, he's kind of thinking, well, we need to do more stuff. We need to really look into who we're letting go. So basically he wants them to look and make sure if they're a Trump supporter, skip over them. No, that's not how it works. If you're getting rid of a whole agency, you're laying off probationary people, and some of them happen to be your people, I'm sorry, they go too. So this is what's happening. So listen to Dear Roland Martin, and then we'll close this thing down for today. Roland, my boy, Roland Martin. I love his podcast. And this guy rides hard. He rides hard for the Democratic Party, on them and for them, which I love about him. Here we go. Roland.
Bullshitting around on whether you can be on fucking TikTok while you're getting caught up in some bullshit housewife, while you're having your fucking MJ and LeBron debates on who's the GOAT. There is literally, as we speak, an entire focus to gut every single civil right and economic gain that we have had since 1964 because they are pissed with those three acts. They're pissed with the Brown vs. Board of Education Act. You have voucher bills that are being pushed in Texas and Tennessee and other places to gut public education. What we have to understand is there is a vicious assault to completely defund black.
And he's aggressive. And he believes it. I believe it too. Because it's kind of erasing us. And how does Donald Trump think that we feel? And they had the audacity to have a Black History celebration in the White House. And I tell you what, guys, I'm a Black American, and there are those guys that were in that room. Those are just, I don't know who those people were. But they were in there. But wait a minute, Donald. I thought that dear Pete Hegseth, he banned Black History from the government, from the Defense Department. So why are you celebrating it? Who's in charge here? What is going on? What is going on? So guys, this MAGA is out of control. Every morning when I wake up, there's something on my phone and I'm going, oh crap. Oh crap. What is he doing now? But something tells me, and I don't know when or how, but Elon is not going to be happy with some things, and Trump is not going to be happy with some things, and they're going to run into each other pretty quickly here. Because I just think that that's going to happen. Because Elon Musk, when you look him up, he's got a really sordid life as well. Trump seems to always be able to surround himself with people that have junk. I mean, I can pull up every single person in his cabinet and find some junk about them. That's crazy. And I mean, it's either legal, they've been sued, or they've done some stuff or said controversial things. He surrounds his people with those kind of people. So there you have it. All right, guys. So today, thank you so much for joining me for Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. And I hope you got some good things out of this one here. And I will continue to talk about and make sure you understand what is going on in our dear country and making sure that you get the facts on what's going on and what we can do about it so that we're not set here and we get thrown a gut punch and not know what's coming our way. All right? So have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Until we meet again. Bye now.